My name is Bill Ray. I am a Distinguished VP Analyst, you can tell, and I'm Chief of Research in Emerging Technologies and Trends. I've worked in many companies. I wanted to highlight a couple, Swiss Telecom to Swisscom, GD Internet into Cellnet, because they were massively disruptive. Swiss Telecom was great. We had a monopoly. Cannot recommend it highly enough. Get yourself a monopoly. It's the thing to have. Really, you make a phone call in Switzerland, we made money. Then we privatized, we went to Swisscom, and suddenly everything changed. Massive disruption. Not technology change, but huge disruption. GD Internet, small internet company, purchased by Cellnet. Suddenly, internet company went to work for a telco. Massive cultural barriers, not least because the guys from GD Internet were earning twice what the guys from Cellnet were. So huge cultural problems, massive disruption. And that's what I want to talk about, how AI, and GenAI in particular, is going to disrupt businesses. I don't know if anyone knows what this is. Oh. It's a cargo hook. And if anyone's heard the expression, sling your hook, this is where it comes from. A docker would have one of these. It'd be passed down from father to son. They'd make it themselves. And they would go down to the London docks and unload ships. They'd turn up in the morning, and this is what they would use to unload ships. Hopefully not with fragile cargo. And they would hook these up with their bales of hay or anything. Thousands of dockers worked there. Thousands of people were employed. Tens of thousands of people were employed to unload the ships that came into London docks and other docks. But it was a technical innovation that ended all of that. And the technical innovation was the container. A container meant you didn't have to unload at the docks. You could then bring the container inland and unload it there. And that was great, but it had a huge knock-on effect. It reduced loading costs by 90%, which is great, but it also destroyed the dockyard communities. It broke the unions. The unions went on strike, and the shippers went, we've got containers, we don't care. It made massive port automation and expansion. More machines, fewer dockers. It also reduced the cost of shipping. The reason why the chips in all of your mobile phones came from one foundry in Taiwan is because it was cheap to ship them. That's why we have this massively centralized supply chains. The supply chain choke points, which we're now very worried about, came about because of the shipping container, because of low-cost shipping. And my point is that sometimes we don't see the impact. You know, like I said, we can all draw pictures of zombies, write books using GenAI, and that's great. But the impact's going to be so much bigger. This says top 5 AI disruptions. I actually went through it this morning. There are 6. Sorry. I don't know why that's gone wrong. I do apologize. Right. Let's start with some easy stuff. Large language models is where all the publicity is. That's what everyone talks about. But actually, we think domain-specific language models are going to be more important. Sometimes called small language models. We don't like the term small. It's 10 billion parameters. To my mind, that's not small. Okay, it's small compared to ChatGPT. It's about 1,000 times smaller. It's still 10 billion parameters. That's not really small, not where I come from. The hyperscalers will dominate this. Microsoft Copilot, Gemini. There's no point in getting in this business. Let them take it. They'll compete on the ecosystem and pricing. But the idea of paying $10 a month for a ChatGPT, that's not business. Domain-specific models. These models will be built into the software. This is our revenue for software. As you can see, if you don't have GenAI, or at least AI, integrated into your software package, you're not growing. You'll still exist. There will be software that doesn't have AI capabilities, but it ain't going to grow. So if you're looking to increase revenue ever, AI and GenAI has to be part of your offering, part of your product, built in to it, embedded in intelligent application models. The problem is that large language models are really expensive to build, and there's diminishing returns. They're not getting that much better. I don't know if you've noticed. ChatGPT 1, 2, and 3, brilliant. 4, yay. Not getting that much better because it's incredibly expensive. And the power consumption. We've got a whole research note which basically says you can have net zero, you can have AI. You can't have both. Pick one. Because it doesn't work. The power consumption is so large That makes them expensive to operate and to build. I don't want to talk about the hallucination problem. It's hilarious. We all know hundreds of examples of that. It's marvelous. I had a conversation with somebody, I can't say who, unfortunately, and they do an annual survey of their employees, and they did this survey, and they discovered their employees were really worried that AI-driven systems were going to drive them out of work. And then they completed the survey a year later. They discovered that their employees aren't worried anymore. Their employees have seen the AI. It's not that good. The employees want to learn about AI. They want to learn how to use it. They're not so scared. It's not so scary once you see how bad it is. They're expensive. What we're going to see is domain specialist models. These are models which are capable of carrying out specific tasks. They can be run on premises. They can be run on your own equipment. They can be run on the edge. That means a fixed price. One of the problems with the large language models is that they normally charge on a token-based system, which means you don't know how much you're going to be spending until it's too late. Run them on site, you've got a fixed cost. So domain-specific language models will be more important. Well, by 2030, they will exceed the business value of large language models. That's our first trend. Second trend, the future of data is not real. Real data is really expensive to gather. It takes a long time. It has privacy implications. It can end up being biased. Synthetic data works so much better. Synthetic data can be churned out on demand in the quantities you want it. You want to know what 10,000 people will do? Just create 10,000 people. Get them to do it. GenAI, of course, is perfectly capable of turning out text data and image data, but it's also capable of turning out database records, shopping histories, credit card histories, banking histories. It can create all of those things, which means you don't have any privacy concerns. Suddenly, you're not worried about the privacy, because, yeah, we anonymize data, but again, you don't need to look far to see de-anonymization of data is a thing, and not that hard to do, often. So keeping data anonymous is a huge challenge. Synthetic data addresses that. In fact, 75% of businesses will be using synthetic data. It starts in healthcare. You see they're really concerned about privacy. Sorry, I can't point over there as well. I'll come over there in a bit. Banking and securities, they're concerned. But faster time to market is important as well. And look at things like retail starting to take an interest, insurance. If you want to know how your customers are going to act, you could build 10,000 of them and see how they're going to act. So synthetic data is very real. It will be, according to this, it will make up over 90% of the data used for training AIs. Better than training them on the data from the other AIs, which is what it's kind of doing at the moment. Anyway, synthetic data has market expansion. It'll become a significant submarket. It already is. We have a research note looking at companies that supply synthetic data. There's a whole business emerging of people who will supply fake data. I thought 10 years ago, if somebody had told you you could make a living selling fake data, but now you can. Accurate data, useful data, representative data, often built on real data, but fed into simulations. We can see it happening. You can see the business value already being achieved, and it is already being achieved. Companies are already doing this. We've got banks who are using it to model customer behavior, to spot fraud. We've got pharmacies using it to estimate the impact of drugs on communities. And of course, we've got self-driving cars. If you design a self-driving car, and bear in mind, we're not big on self-driving cars because, they're silly. But imagine you've got a self-driving car and you're trying to train it. And you train it so that people walk out in front of it, dogs walk out in front of it. And then what happens? A woman pushing a pushchair on roller skates comes out in past and she goes straight into her. Because it hasn't seen that before. It's an edge case, a rare case. But with synthetic data, we can create rare cases. We can create 1 million of them. Suddenly they're not rare anymore. And we can use that to train the AI. It's the old joke, how does a Tesla see a motorcycle? It doesn't. They don't exist. Someone who rides a motorcycle, I find that very concerning. Where are we? Yes. So the problem, of course, is going to be deciding who to buy data from. And can you trust that data? And there the challenge will be the brand awareness. Because you have no way to verify the data's good until it's too late. So brand awareness will be critical. Now, all of that data feeds into simulations. And intelligent simulation will be permanent application software. Intelligent simulation is going to be absolutely central. I mentioned about the self-driving cars. That's a good example. But simulation data will underpin 20% of business decisions. It's already fitting into applications, making suggestions. You don't need experts. We see simulations of buildings, simulations of places. NASA and the European Space Agency separately are working on simulations of the entire planet to be completed around 2030, which will be useful. But we're also simulating what happens if you pour white powder over a football stadium from a drone, which is sort of worst-case scenario, horror story that people talk about. So understanding how people will behave, multi-agent behavior. Google's doing it to work out protein folding, building new pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceutical research is a huge area here, developing new drugs. Most drugs fail. So, I don't know, 98% of drugs developed fail early. If you can cut that in half, you can save billions straight away without having to do anything very much. And you're only at early stages. The first drugs designed through simulation are now entering human trials. In fact, they're about a year into human trials. Within 2 or 3 years, you may well be taking drugs that were designed in simulation because it's cheaper and more cost-effective. So this is happening. And it's being embedded into applications. We look at the implications of that. 10 times the market, existing simulation market. A huge simulation expansion, combining the AI, and there's a bit of metaverse in there. We try not to use metaverse anymore. Spatial computing is the in term now, because metaverse has fallen out of fashion. But, you know, it's all the same stuff. Requires synthetic data and generates it. But we looked at the revenue potential here. You can see simulation digital twin of a thing, currently worth about 11 billion, going up to 55 billion. Of a person, to work out what you can sell them, what they're buying, 10 billion going up to 52 billion. But the composite process, more than one thing, how is it going to work together? How are these things going to interact? That's where the real money is. Huge potential. So intelligent simulation is going to drive business decisions, powered by synthetic data and capable of modeling things that might happen and how they're going to happen, and the effect that changes can have on that. Let's look at some real data. Earth intelligence is the next innovation, if you're keeping track. Earth intelligence is coming on astoundingly quickly, partly because the satellites are getting better. The satellites are getting better mainly because of mobile phones. The fact is, all that stuff, those billions of dollars that were spent making the tiny little cameras, tiny little radios, tiny little batteries, tiny little processors, making them all robust so they can fit in your pocket, it's brilliant for satellites. Driving the satellite industry massively. So satellites are much smaller, they're doing a great deal. They're also able to see more. You used to say when a satellite could see a country, your customer was a government. When a satellite could see a field, your customer was a farmer. When a satellite can see a tank, your customer is an army. But now a satellite can see a mouse. 10 centimetre resolution we're talking about. 10 centimetres. You can see a huge amount. And that's just in visible light. We're talking infrared, multispectral, hyperspectral, RF, GNSS occultation and reflection. All sorts of exciting things. Infrared's great. So for 1.5 metre resolution infrared, you get a photograph of a street and say which house is properly insulated and which one's growing cannabis in the loft. From space! Huge amount of information coming in. And we used to say that satellite data that was more than 6 months old was worthless. That's just not true anymore. The fact is, if you're thinking of opening a supermarket in a town, the first thing you do is go along to someone like Planet Labs, and say, could you sell me a photograph of the car park of every supermarket in town every day for the last year? And they do. They have it on record. Take those pictures, feed them into an AI which counts cars, not a brilliant, clever AI, ChatGPT, just a normal AI that counts cars. And now you know how many people went to the supermarket. Now you know whether you've got a business model that can support that. Actually, my favorite example is even more extreme. There's a company that their product is the quantity of nickel smelted yesterday. That's their product. And they do that because they know the location of every single nickel smelter in the world. And they use an infrared satellite to say how hot that nickel smelter is. Because they also know how hot it has to be to smelt nickel, they can tell you whether it's running. And then they can estimate how much nickel was smelted. The product is a number in a spreadsheet. Quantity of nickel smelted yesterday. They do copper now as well. Huge amount of data coming in. And yeah, I can talk about this pretty much indefinitely, so I won't. But the use cases are growing exponentially. We have this mantra at Gartner that every single company can gain from Earth intelligence. If you're not using Earth intelligence, you should be, or you could be. It might not be economically viable. There are some costs associated. But certainly you should be looking at it because there is value in knowing what you're doing, knowing what your competition is doing, and knowing what's going on in your environment. So Earth intelligence is enormously important. And we say intelligence because Earth observation is just looking. I mean, the World Economic Forum, not our figures, World Economic Forum says Earth intelligence will be worth $3.8 trillion by 2030. Trillion, not billion, trillion. If you take $3.8 trillion, I worked this out, and you pile them up in $1 bills, they go 415 kilometers, which is pretty much low Earth orbit. It's a lot of money. So there's no lack of data in Earth intelligence. We've got these satellites up there. They're taking, planets taking about 10 million photographs a day. That's just one company. There's enormous amounts of data. The question is, what do we do with it? How do we analyze it? How do we make use of it? Use cases are virtually unlimited. I was talking to a company that does identification of plastic in a landfill. They look at landfill, and from multispectral data, they can tell what kind of plastic has been dumped there. Huge amount of detail. You can tell the health of crops, not just what they are, but you can tell whether they're growing well. So a huge amount of data coming in. Environmental monitoring, obviously agriculture is the biggie. Governments love it, natural resources. But like I said, everybody. We get a lot for insurance, actually. Insurance is interesting because they don't want to know what it looks like now. They want to know what it looked like before the flood or before the fire, which they can now do. So that's Earth intelligence. It's not all good news, though, because cybersecurity is increasingly important. And we're having to shift from a response system where we respond to attacks to a preemptive system where we actually protect ourselves before that happens. The ability to, let's try and give you an example. Years ago, I used to work in cybersecurity, and we used to set up honeypots. You know what honeypot? Where you set up a server, and you put some interesting-looking documents on it, and then you just wait. And if anyone touches it, that'll be a hacker, because your legitimate customers have no reason to touch that server. So if anyone touches it, you know they're a threat. OK, good. How long does it take to set that up? Day or two to make it convincing, create some convincing documents? No, ChatGPT, or Gemini, or Copilot, you do it in half an hour. You've got 1,000 servers. Why have one? The hacker comes into your network and finds 10,000 servers. How are they going to know which is the one with actual data on it? And if they touch the wrong one, you immediately know they're legitimate. So that ability to proactively create a moving attack surface which changes constantly. And that's what it's got to be. You can't respond to attacks anymore because the attacks are also coming from AI in exactly the same way. You're all familiar with spear phishing. Phishing, where you get the email saying you've won a competition and you ignore it. And you get spear phishing, where somebody a little bit clever puts in a bit of time and effort. And they go, okay, you get an email from someone that says, we met at a conference. Remember that AI conference we went to in June last year in Milan? We talked about applications of AI within farming. What you said was very interesting. Can we follow up? Now, so that's spear phishing, and it works. But it takes effort on the part of the attacker. The attacker has to put effort into that to create. No, they don't. They just ask ChatGPT or Copilot, and it spits out 1,000 emails, each one of them individually targeted towards one of your senior management. And they can be quite convincing. So we have to be proactive. The purpose here is to increase the cost of attack. It used to be expensive to create spear phishing campaigns. Now it's cheap. We need to make it expensive again, otherwise it'll be overwhelming. We need to preemptively. We can't wait to be attacked. Automated moving target defense to morph the attack service, create decoys, change the network layout continuously. And this is going to be a big deal. In fact, we think it's going to be 25%, will displace 25% of existing solutions. So 25% of the industry is going to be displaced by this, the cybersecurity. Any cybersecurity company which isn't actively investing in automated moving target defense won't be around in 10 years. Because it's going to be essential. It's preemptive. You can see the breakdown there. Moving target defense, threat simulation, predictive threat intelligence. Yeah. And then we get to our sixth one, which is an even weirder one, which is disinformation. Do you remember Wash and Go, the shampoo? The Wash and Go? They launched in Russia many years ago, back in the 80s. They launched a very successful, became hugely successful, very, very popular. So much so, there was a cocktail called the Wash and Go. You could drink it, I've had it. You could drink the Wash and Go because it was such a brand, so popular. But then this rumor started that it made your hair fall out. And there was nothing the company could do about it. They tried using celebrities, and eventually, in a desperate attempt, the MD of the company went on national television and said, "This shampoo does not make your hair fall out." And immediately all the Russians went, "Well, he wouldn't be saying that." And it's gone. That product, there was never any truth to that. That product was destroyed by a rumor. Probably not started deliberately. I don't know. How conspiracy theory are we? Probably not. But nowadays it happens all the time. You will be attacked by disinformation. Your business could be attacked by disinformation. You might think nobody cares. Nobody cares about my business. I'm small. Your competitor might. Someone else might, a disgruntled customer. The resources they require to launch this kind of attack is really quite small. And therefore, the cost is very low. And they can create false information. They can create false reviews. They can create false stories. They can create all sorts of things. When you send out press releases, do you digitally sign them? Of course you don't. Nobody does. You just email them out to the journalists. And the journalists go, "Well, it must have come from him. I can see the from address. That's secure. That wouldn't be lying." But imagine someone did send out a fraudulent press release that came from your company. How long would it be? Maybe the journalist would phone you. I mean, they should. You always tell it was the difference between a journalist and a blogger, whereas you say was the telephone. Because a journalist will take the time to phone you up to make sure it's true, whereas a blogger won't bother. I don't think the journalists have got the time now, bless them. They're on 5 stories a day. They haven't got time. So don't rely on that. Disinformation security is a new discipline. Identity attestation, detection and response, safeguarding. Making sure that the information that comes from you, people know it came from you. And the information that doesn't come from you, they know it doesn't come from you. It's going to be a big deal. It's already becoming a big deal. Yeah, it's already deep fake detection is a $5.5 billion market. 15 billion by 2026. That's only 14 months away. 13? 13 months away. So it's even getting closer, even as I speak. Impersonation preservation, we've all heard the stories. You know that there was a bank that got phoned up. Someone in the accounts department got phoned up by apparently the managing director, who requested that they make an immediate transfer. The transfer was carried out. Millions of dollars were stolen. Now, of course, there were procedures in place to prevent that happening. But an angry managing director phones up? How would your staff react if your accounts department got a phone call from the angry MD, CEO, saying, get this transfer sorted now? Oddly enough, audio confirmation is one of the biggest growing markets. Or not oddly enough, unsurprisingly, given the fact that we know it being used successfully by attackers. It's the biggest growth market. It's can you be really certain that that's somebody speaking and it's the person you think it is? I did speak to one bank who said, we don't worry about that. So you're very confident when he phones. So no, we don't have systems to make those transfers that quickly. We couldn't do it. Even if it was the MD phoning up and getting angry, there's nothing we could do. I'm not sure that's a solution. It's kind of mitigation, perhaps. Oh, oddly enough, and I just thought you might be interested, if anyone's aware of the idea of a digital polygraph, this is some insurance companies got very excited about this a couple of years ago, and this is where it can tell whether you're lying over the phone. So you phone up to make an insurance claim, and it does an analysis of your voice and tries to work out if you're lying. We've seen a huge drawback of investment in those in the last year. They've really not taken off in the way that people thought they might. Just like I mentioned, it's not directly relevant, but it's sort of interesting. It's the same voice analysis, came in the same research, and we found that really those don't seem to work, frankly. Cool. Those are the 6 biggest disruptions that we're going to see from GenAI over the next few years. There'll be others, but those are the biggest. Writing zombie apocalypse camps doesn't really count. It's a disruption. People are already doing this, though, and I want to make this clear. We're not just talking about something which is going to happen. We're talking about something which is already happening. So if we look at, we ask people what they're using, what people are actually using, and we've got the sum of the top 3 and then the first choice there from leaders highly involved in AI selected. And they're using it embedded in existing applications, things like customer relationship management, help desk support, things like that. Some of them are using specific use cases, prompt engineering. Some are creating their own models. And occasionally standalone tools. Like I said, the $10 a month, no. Integrated into existing applications, that's the future. And it's hard, and it doesn't always work. Like I said, people used to be scared of it, but they're not now, because they've seen how terrible it is. Implementing it is hard. Cost is expensive. There's a huge dearth of talent, people who understand AI, or Gen AI in particular. There's a huge problem with finding people who understand it and can talk about it and work with it. Everyone's got that problem. Data availability, simulated data, of course, will address that. Intellectual property is starting to be a thing. We expect that to become more important. Obviously, we've seen some significant deals. If anyone uses LinkedIn, of course we use LinkedIn, they're now scraping your data to feed their AI. Reddit has recently signed a deal to scrape the AI. Blue Sky didn't, but got scraped anyway, because, it's public. We'll just scrape that data and use it to train an AI, whether you like it or not. Yeah, people are concerned. People aren't really concerned about hallucinations, oddly enough. But that's because most of the use cases we see, the kind of killer use case for this application is the help desk, where you have somebody on a help desk who's talking to a human being, and they have a prompt system that suggests things they might say. So you've still got that human in the loop. The AI is suggesting things to the human. It's not delivering it on its own. And that's a huge amount of value. They're still worried about it. Security, privacy is a huge deal. Nobody understands it. Again, lack of professionals. Market-ready solutions. Of course, the hyperscalers are stepping into that. Copilot is a marvelous thing. So they are stepping into that. and integrating it with applications in the way that we've said. But these are the large language models. Domain-specific will be more important. But they are investing. This is our forecast for overall IT spending. And obviously, it's quite a big number because people spend a lot on IT. But you can see it goes up, of course. But look at the increase in AI and GenAI in particular. AI is increasing, without any doubt, but GenAI is ballooning as we go out. And 2027 just isn't that far away. Still, obviously, the majority of money is still spent on servers and cables and routers and switches because, you know, we all need those, laptops, phones, all that stuff. So what are people doing? Now, you'll get a copy of this slide. I've made it a bit small, and I wanted to get a lot on it, so I can only apologize if it's not that legible. But I think it's really interesting. If you look at this, you see customer service, real-time speech, it's ironic, speech and text translation, the virtual customer assistant, the agent assistants. So quite a lot of people in customer service using it, marketing, HR. But look at legal, risk and compliance, much lower numbers. So take a look at the area that you work in and look at what people are doing and think, are you doing these things? Are you looking at these things? Are you thinking about doing it? Because a significant number of your contemporaries are. And GenAI and AI will continue to disrupt because technologies do. I've talked about ways in which it's disrupting things like Earth intelligence and different areas. Sometimes not the things that we think it's obvious. You know, GenAI churns out, I mean, if you're a graphic artist, my wife had a wonderful job where she used to take the covers of books and turn them into banner ads for websites. She loved it. That's not going to be a job. That's done. That's too bad. It was fun while it lasted, but it's done. So some things are obviously going to be disrupted quite quickly, but the disruption will be much bigger than that, and we will see it extend into all sorts of areas. Because these technologies, once they're embedded, once they're around, they stay, and GenAI is going to stay. Just like the shipping container, which continues to disrupt.